after Zhang Weili's masterclass at UFC 312, I think her next fight should be a super fight against Valentina Shevchenko. And so I'm going to be running through the top 5 super fights that I want to see right now in the UFC. And we are going to start it off with that Zhang Weili Valentina Shevchenko fight. Weili is on a 5-fight win streak, and she's not just like squeaking by, getting close wins. These are 5 straight dominant Ws. She had finishes over Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Carla Esparza, and then just clear dominant decision wins over Tatiana Suarez, Amanda Lemos, and Yan Xiaonan. She is currently tied for the most title wins in the strawweight division history with 6, tied with Joanna. She just beat Tatiana Suarez, who in my opinion was her worst matchup. I mean, she was a betting underdog heading into this fight. In her previous 2 UFC losses, in one of them, she got caught by Rose. In the second fight, a big part why she lost that very close fight with Rose Namajunas was the fact that Rose was able to control her, rack up a lot of control time, and that was kind of, Tatiana Suarez's path to victory here. She is a very impressive wrestler, could rack up control time, potentially find a submission. And aside from getting taken down like 1 time in the first round, I mean, Weili just absolutely ran through her. So she just faced her toughest test currently at 115. I feel like she runs through everyone else. Like maybe there are a few names who can build up, potentially earn a title shot. But is anyone thinking like a Virna Jandiroba, someone like that, a Mackenzie Dern is actually going to beat Zhang Weili? Because personally, I don't, and I think she's just going to continue smoking the competition at strawweight. On the other side of this potential super fight, we have Valentina Shevchenko, who is the clear-cut biggest name at flyweight 125. She has 9 title wins in the weight class. She is coming off a very clear win over Alexa Grasso, kind of wrapped up that trilogy, lost the first one, second fight was a draw, had the most definitive win in the third fight where she just controlled Alexa Grasso for pretty much 5 rounds on the ground. So this very easily could be the strawweight GOAT taking on the flyweight GOAT. Maybe someone thinks a Rose Namajunas is still the GOAT. Personally, I'm giving it to Zhang Weili. She has the volume, the consistency, the big wins. So strawweight GOAT taking on the flyweight GOAT. The one person who could potentially affect this potential super fight is Manon Fiorot, who I think is the clear, number 1 contender in the flyweight weight class. She is 7-0 in the UFC, has big wins over Rose Namajunas, Erin Blanchfield, and she has definitely earned a shot at the title. Like, she should be fighting for the belt. She should not have to take another fight at 125. I think she's more than earned that opportunity. But the issue is, if you have Manon go out and fight Valentina, if Valentina loses, I do think it takes a lot of steam out of this potential super fight, because it's not just Zhang Weili moving up to be a 2-weight world champion. That would kind of be like a one-sided like champ opportunity, almost like an Israel Adesanya, Jan Blachowicz situation. What makes this fight so special is it is the 2 all-time greats, and that it's Zhang Weili trying to take the belt off of someone as accomplished as Valentina. So maybe you make that fight right away and you just kind of hope that Valentina wins and has that big fight. But I also wouldn't hate if they just made it right now. Manon, it would suck for her, but sometimes the biggest fights, someone kind of gets left out, and that would be her in this situation. Now moving into probably the super fight that I would want to see the most, and probably the highest level one in this video, Islam Makhachev taking on Ilia Topuria. I think this is like an all-time great fight, an all-time great matchup, and it does seem like the clock is kind of ticking on this one. Even though, relatively speaking, these guys are fairly new champions. It's not like this is a GSP Silva situation where they've been champions for years and years and years, especially Ilia kind of just recently got the belt. But I do think this is something the UFC should try to make sooner rather than later. In my opinion, these are the top 2 pound-for-pound fighters at this point. I think Islam has a strong case to be the lightweight GOAT. He leads the weight class in title wins. And then for Ilia Topuria, doesn't necessarily have the volume at featherweight, but his first 2 title wins are knocking out Volk, the only man to do that at 145, and then the only man to knock out Max Holloway, ever. So 2 insane wins over all-time great 145ers to start his title run. And I think what's also interesting about this matchup is I know a lot of people are going to pencil in Islam as like he should clearly win. He's going to be the bigger guy. But I do think there are factors that make this fight competitive on paper. Islam has had to face an all-time great featherweight, earlier on in his title reign. And I know the second one was definitive, but when Volk had a full camp, he looked somewhat human against Volk. Volk put up a great fight. It was a very, very competitive bout. Could have potentially gone either way. So I think the fact that, Islam has had some issues with the 145er could probably give Ilia some confidence here. And then also Ilia just possesses fight-ending power that we have not seen from some of Islam's other opponents. And he's faced some powerful guys, but Ilia truly does have that nuclear power where if he lands, Islam Makhachev will go out. And then Islam's obviously bringing some things to the table here. This is a true grappling test for Ilia. We've been hearing about how his ground game is great, his wrestling, his jiu-jitsu. He really hasn't had to rely on it. He at least is going to have to rely on it defensively against Islam Makhachev because he will 100% test that part of Ilia's game. And then also Ilia just going up against someone who has a much bigger frame. He will be the smaller guy in that matchup. So I feel like some people argue against this because they say like these are two of the biggest stars in the UFC. They should continue to work in the division, kind of build themselves up, let them win a couple more title fights. I just don't think either of these guys are going to be sticking around in their weight classes for much longer. It seems like Islam Makhachev is likely going to move up to 170 soon, and I think he probably should. It's been kind of unfortunate with some of the title fights because we were already supposed to get the second Charles fight. We were supposed to get the second Arman fight. That turned into number 10 or 11, Renato Moicano, and then Volk on short notice. So there are still some fights potentially out there for Islam, but I do think, he's going to be making that journey up to 170 pretty soon, probably within the next year or two. And then for Ilia Topuria, we're hearing that he might just be too big to continue fighting at 145. I think he's even said that he's considering vacating the belt and just moving up because he doesn't know if he can make the weight anymore. And so what I don't want is the UFC to kind of sit on their hands, wait, let's say Ilia defends against Movsar and then he defends against a Diego Lopez or, a Volk would probably be the next matchup. And then you have Islam defend against a Charles or an Arman Sarukian. And then we're getting into a spot where Islam is now ready to make that move. And even if Ilia goes up, Islam would have already been gone. And I just don't think you want that to happen. There's a lot of these great all-time fights that we never got to see. I referenced GSP Silva, Jon Jones during that same time period, GSP Habib, even a Dominic Cruz, Jose Aldo fight, I think would have been massive, when both those guys were at their peak. And we did not get those superstar matchups. I understand you don't really want to hurt the stock of, either one of those dudes, but is anyone really going to be down on Ilia because he loses to an all-time great in Islam or, the other way around? These guys are still going to be, top tier fighters. The fans are still going to respect them. And I just think getting to see this fight would just be an amazing matchup. And I just want to see it happen. Now, this next fight, I don't know if it qualifies as a super fight. It is technically champ versus champ, but it's not like someone is moving up in weight, at least for this specific matchup. It's just Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall. We need to see this fight. I've talked about this on this channel a million times. I feel like this fight's kind of been beaten to death. Jon Jones has not yet proven he is the best heavyweight in the world. He did not beat Francis Ngannou to win the belt. He has not defended the belt or faced the interim champion. Wins over Cyril Gane and Stipe Miocic, a very old Stipe Miocic, are just not swaying me here. To be the best, you have to beat the best, and he has not proven that he is the best at this point. Aspinall, 1,000% deserving of a title shot, has just run through the heavyweight division, has insane power. He has a skill set that truly could, challenge Jon Jones. If Tom Aspinall lands, Jon Jones will be going to sleep. Also has flashed some ground game. It's kind of was his base was jiu-jitsu growing up with his dad. So he has a lot of things that could give Jon Jones problems. And I also think this is just a fight that could really save heavyweight. If you allow Jon Jones to come in, clog up the belt, you didn't make the Ngannou fight when you had the chance, you let Jon Jones come in, just kind of sit on the belt and then leave without fighting Tom Aspinall, that is going to set the division back for at least a couple of years. We need to see that heavyweight matchup. Then looking at a women's super fight here, I really want to see, and I do think this fight will happen, Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison. I think at this point it's very clear Kayla Harrison will be challenging for the title against Juliana Pena. I would be absolutely shocked if Kayla Harrison did not handedly win that fight. And then at that point, you're looking at the 135-pound weight class. Who else is there for Kayla Harrison? There's not going to be a clear next challenger. The division is very flat at this point. Amanda Nunes has already hinted at coming back. I think even when she retired, a lot of people thought she would make her way back to the sport at some time. And these two are actually former training partners. And Kayla's talked about wanting this matchup for a very long time. When she was PFL champion, she was talking about Amanda Nunes. When they were training in the same gym, they were training partners, and she was going on interviews talking about how she wanted the opportunity to fight Amanda Nunes. I do think it's part of the reason why Amanda kind of left. started up her, own thing, making her own team and all that stuff. But this is a fight that's kind of been building for a while now. I do think it's one of the biggest fights you can make in MMA. A lot of people consider Amanda Nunes to be the women's GOAT. I think Kayla Harrison is going to go down as an all-time great. You just hope she's able to fight some of these, big names, because she was in the PFL. She was wanting to fight Amanda Nunes. Then she was also wanting to fight Chris Cyborg. That fight can never come to fruition because Chris Cyborg's contract was matched by Bellator. So Kayla Harrison has been chasing these big matchups, and I hope she finally gets it. I think an Amanda Nunes-Kayla Harrison fight would be awesome to watch. And then the fifth and final one here, I did want to have it to be a clean 5. And I'm not going to say I need this matchup, but I also wouldn't hate this potential super fight. And it's one that I think is very deserving. Merab Dvalishvili defending his belt against Alexandre Pantoja. I just think this one makes sense. Like I said, I don't know if I'm clamoring to see it. I don't really think Pantoja has an amazing shot, but he's also sitting at flyweight with 7 straight wins, 4 title wins. He does not have a clear-cut number 1 contender. And then also at 135, there's not a clear top contender. So I think you could make the case that you make this super fight, you let both divisions kind of, work themselves out where you're getting some contender matchups and you're able to potentially, form a new number 1 contender while these two champs go at it. Because you're looking at 135. I talked about how 125 doesn't have a clear contender. It looks like the UFC thinks it's Kai Kara France, but 1 fight win streak, not exactly stamping your case to fight for the title. At 135, there's only 1 fighter in the top 8 who is coming off a win. So that would be Petr Yan. He has back-to-back wins. I think if we're talking about deserving challengers at 135, it would be Petr Yan. But you also have the first fight that was just so uncompetitive. And then he's had 2 solid wins, Song Yadong, Davison Figueiredo, but both decisions. I wouldn't say this is just the most guaranteed locked in number 1 contender slot for Petr Yan. And I don't think it would be crazy to have him fight one more time before he gets a shot at the belt. So these guys are both all-time greats in their weight classes. Pantoja has an argument to be the 2nd best flyweight. Merab is in bantamweight GOAT conversations at this point. So 2 highly skilled guys. Neither guy really has that insane name value, but a high-level matchup. I think Pantoja is deserving of the shot, especially with how he's cleared out the weight class. Could be interesting to see. So that's going to wrap it up for 5 super fights I would be interested in seeing. Zhang, Weili, Valentina, Shevchenko, Islam Makhachev, Ilia Topuria, Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall, Nunes, Harrison, and then Merab taking on Pantoja. Let me know if you like those matchups. If you have your own super fight you would like to see, let me hear it down below. Maybe a Pereira DDP type situation. But let me hear your thoughts. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.